because apparently this is going to be an ongoing series. I saw this article from the end of January about women who get promotions being more likely to get a divorce. The same is not true for men. And the only thing I could think was, duh. I did a segment the other day about what people really want in relationships. It's an article written by a feminist sociology assistant professor, Ellen Lamont. In it, she says, even in San Francisco, among people who claim to be progressive, they default to traditional gender roles in dating. Why? Well, we don't know. She says many of them say they want egalitarian marriages. Many of them say they want egalitarian relationships, but for some reason set all of these rules that are completely traditional. One of the most notable points, she says, is that even among feminists, they think men want to be in control, so they let them be in control. But if that was the case, that men wouldn't be a feminist. Why would you as a feminist want to date someone who isn't and expect an egalitarian relationship? And lo and behold, men want to be, well, they do want to be in control. They want to be stronger, taller, tougher than their partner is. I wonder why. Which brings me to this story from the BBC Work Life. Getting a top job dramatically increases women's chance of divorce, even in egalitarian countries. Why isn't it the same for men? Let's put two and two together here, shall we? If a man and a woman are in a relationship and the man gets a promotion, the man is still the breadwinner, feeling strong and tough and in control. Why would he want to get a divorce? But wait a minute. What happens when we combine both of these stories? You see, women want men who are strong and men want to be in control. That's the perception of both, at least. So what happens when the woman gets a promotion? All of a sudden now there's an imbalance. A woman is dating a man who is lesser than her. I'm not surprised this results in them getting a divorce. If even the feminist sociology assistant professor says people in relationships, even feminists, default to traditional gender roles, because a woman breadwinner is not a traditional gender role. Now, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. By all means, if that's your your thing, do it to it. That's the great thing about liberal democracies. And I don't mean liberal as in left. I mean literally as in like a free society with democratic values and libertarian values. And I don't mean big L libertarian. I mean freedom. Congratulations. You as a woman can get that job and can get that promotion. You are free to do so. But the data shows, don't be surprised if the relationship is harder. Look, have you noticed the trope on Tinder? I shouldn't say trope, but the common stereotype. Women like tall guys. They say, if you're under 5'10", don't bother swiping on me. They only want 6 feet. Why is that? Why do women want men who are bigger than them? Is it possible this idea extends not just to physical stature, but to societal stature as well? I think the answer is a resounding duh. As the feminist found, even feminist women want to be in a relationship where they say, look, men want to be in control, so they actually cede that ground. And men want to be in control. They want to be taller and stronger and tougher, and they feel confident, I guess. So sure enough, when women get promotions, divorce is more likely. But let's read and see what they say. They write, having a successful and enjoyable career alongside a fulfilling romantic relationship is a life goal for many of us. But even in the most gender equal countries, finding a partnership that lasts is trickier for high-flying women than men. You know why? I'm going to make an assumption. I think it's because women want to be in a relationship with a man who is giving them security, and men want to be providers. So if you're a very, very high-status woman, you're probably looking up. You're looking up at who you're going to be dating, someone who's stronger and better than you and can provide you with a safety net. Not every single woman, maybe not the majority, but enough. I think the data shows it might actually be the majority, considering divorced women goes up, but not for men. In Sweden, of all places, which ranks first in the EU's Gender Equality Index, thanks to factors like generous parental leave, subsidized daycare, and flexible working arrangements, economists recently studied how promotions to top jobs affected the probability of divorce for each gender. The result? Women were much more likely to pay a higher personal price for their career success. Promotion to a top job in politics increases the divorce rate of women, but not for men. And women who become CEOs divorce faster than men who become CEOs, summarizes Johanna Rickney, a professor at Stockholm University and co-author of the research, which was published earlier this month in American Economic Journal. The paper, which looked at the lives of heterosexual men and women working for private companies with 100 or more employees, found that married women were twice as likely to be divorced 3 years after their promotion to CEO level compared to their male counterparts. In the public sector, using 3 decades worth of records, women mayors and parliamentarians promoted after an election doubled their chances of splitting from their partners. 75% were still married 8 years after the vote, compared with 85% of those who didn't get promoted. While there was no evidence of a similar effect for men, female medical doctors, police officers, and priests who progressed in their careers also followed the trend. And no one is surprised. I guess the feminists are. I'm sorry, the data doesn't support the way you see the world. But I believe there is another factor here. Perhaps women who get promoted take on more responsibility and then aren't around as often for the men who also want to have a lot of responsibility. I don't think this is really the reason, because there's no necessarily correlation between a promotion and more work. In fact, a promotion might actually lead to less work. A lot of managers, at white collar jobs might end up sitting around a lot and have a lot more free time. I think it's an issue of status and stature. And it's probably true a lot of men don't like feeling like lessers, and women don't want to date lessers. Not for everybody, maybe not the majority, I don't know, but it seems to be the case, doesn't it? They go on to say the authors noted that while the majority of participants in the study had children, most had left home by the time their parents divorced. So the marriage stressors in the run-up to these separations were not connected to more generalized pressures of having small children. It could also be that marriage is primarily about a partnership to have a family. And when those kids grow up and move on and move out, there is less of a reason for people to actually be married. Now, that's more of a liberal, progressive view, but not as nearly far left as many of these people are. But it is something I've noticed quite a bit, that a lot of divorces tend to happen after the kids reach a certain age. But it's not universal. Clearly, there are parents who get divorced when the kids are really young. Rickney argues that although Sweden has provided the legislation and societal structures to create the expectation that you shouldn't need to choose between family and career, the research reveals that what happens to families when women progress up the career ladder is often a different story. Many couples experience stress and friction when there are changes in the division of the economic and social roles. For example, due to the impact of the amount of leisure time they can spend together or how they divide up household tasks. But this, the research team argues, is often amplified when it is the woman who is promoted because it creates more of a mismatch of expectations. While Rickney's research did not measure which party initiated divorce in each case, one theory is that the husbands of top managers who got promoted found the situation harder to deal with than wives who were married to high-performing men. She points out that the marriage market has not kept up with the labor market when it comes to gender equality, since it is still seen as quite unusual for men to be the main supportive spouse in someone else's career. I think this norm changing is pretty far off, she adds. Her team's research, she argues, might therefore act as a lesson about what lies ahead for other countries that are moving toward more egalitarian economies. Here's what I think. I think it's a mix of nature and nurture. I think there's absolutely societal expectations ingrained in people's minds about the roles they're supposed to take, and thus men are driven to succeed because they're told this is socially acceptable. Everybody wants to fit in. Why are women in the workplace more than ever? It's socially acceptable, if not socially demanded, that you manage your own life and be successful. Many people want to be financially independent, so everybody works. Women have now reached that point where they can be CEOs. But I do think biology plays a role. Testosterone. My understanding is it will make you more competitive and more aggressive, in which case there's going to be a drive to be better and to win. And thus, you're not going to want to be a loser in a relationship. You're going to want to feel like you're succeeding and growing every day and not like people are passing you up or that you're inadequate to your spouse or loved one. I'm not going to pretend like I can tell you for sure. I can only really tell you this is what's happening. The rest is going to be for you to decide. If it is true that this divorce rate only happens when women get promoted, the answer is, why is that? Now, of course, many people on the left are going to say social pressures and social constructs. Many more ultra-traditionalists are going to say, no, it's because men are ingrained to be the breadwinner and women are attracted to men who do all these things, yada, yada. The reality is it's both. It really, really is both. And it's not even absolute. There are probably a lot of women who get by just fine, a lot of men who get by just fine. But I think it's absurd to ignore the fact that men tend to do certain things, that women tend to do certain things. And while that is not a guarantee of who you will be and what you want to do, and it shouldn't be an obstruction to what you want to do, you should be absolutely able to have the opportunity to do whatever you want. The fact remains that there are natural tendencies within us. And even if it's not based on biological driving factors or evolutionary psychology, it could simply be that men are taller. And because of this, they're more likely to do certain jobs, period. Men are taller. There you go. It could be as simple as that. But I'll leave it to you guys. I'll keep this one short. Do you agree with me? Well, I know I'm going to get inundated by feminists who disagree with me and are going to be very angry that I dared read the article in the first place. But hey, what do you want me to do? This is coming out of Sweden, of all places. So if Stockholm is wrong and they're as feminist as they come, I don't know what you expect of me. I'll see you all tomorrow at 10 a.m. in the next segment. Thanks for hanging out.